Hello. This brief presentation is to supplement the Making Map Useful for Parents presentation, which was available on January 27th, 2011. The purpose of this whole thing will be to discuss the map testing and go over briefly the student progress report that was sent home with the first trimester report card. If you have that report handy, that's great. If not, you may want to pause this briefly and get that so that you can see it when we refer to it a little bit later on in the presentation. Now, continuing on, what is the MAP test? MAPS, or Measure of Academic Progress, was created by the Northwest Evaluation Association, the NWEA. The NWEA.org website is also available to you here on the screen if you should require further information. The MAP, or Measures of Academic Progress Assessment, is a computerized adaptive test that adjusts its difficulty based on each student's responses. Students will be challenged according to their individual abilities. So in essence, what this means is that the test itself changes as the students take it. The more questions they get right, the test will get difficult. If they get a question or two wrong, the test will gear itself down to their ability level. This is great because it gives us the most accurate reading possible of where the students are performing when they take the test. It gives us very accurate data to work with. Students in grades 3 through 8 are currently assessed in September and May. Each student is assessed in both reading and math. In fact, though, this spring when we do the test in May, we'll actually be giving it to our incoming third graders, so current second graders, and we'll not be giving it to our outgoing eighth graders. Obviously, the second graders will be with us next year, and we want to get a head start on getting some information on them and get them used to the test and be able to use that information in the following fall when they take it again as third graders. MAP data. The data provided by the MAP assessment is reviewed by teachers and used to determine each student's strengths and target areas. Teachers use this information to help guide instruction, and in fact some of our teachers have already begun using this for helping with differentiation, making groups in the classroom, etc., etc. MAP also provides a RIT or RASH unit score for each student. The RIT score fits along the RIT scale, which gives a snapshot of student performance. RIT scores are used to chart your child's growth from test to test and from year to year. Now the RIT score, it's basically kind of an arbitrary number. It's the scale that was chosen by NWEA. It's the scale that they're using to measure your child's progress. I think of it sort of like a thermometer. You can have a temperature in either Celsius or Fahrenheit. It doesn't really matter which one. It just gives you a reading and based on that scale. This is just like that, only with academic test scores for your child. So at this time, if you have the student progress report available, please take that out as we'll be going through that and walking you through some of the things that make up this report so that you can understand them. As I mentioned earlier, first of all, the test in two areas, mathematics and reading, as highlighted by the arrow right there. And we're going to go through each of these categories here and kind of break them down. To help you further understand as well, down in the lower right-hand corner here that I've just highlighted are explanatory notes. These notes basically tell you what some of the things on the report mean. So it is fairly self-explanatory, but we just wanted to make sure we had this resource available to you as well. The first thing you'll see where the arrow is now highlighting is the season/year. That is the time in which the test was taken. So in this particular one, it says F10, that stands for fall of 2010. So that's how you know when this test was taken. As your child takes more and more of these tests, there actually should be a list of these dates and all this other data going down in the columns here that currently are fairly sparse. But just so you understand that. Next to that is the grade level that they were in, and then next thing you have where the arrow has gone to is the student score range. That is a reflection of the RIT score that I was just talking about. That's the RIT range. So this student in particular is, I know it's hard to see on here, but it says a range of 200 to 206, with the mid-range of that, of course, being a 203. So your son or daughter will have three numbers there as well, representing the range that they scored in. The next important thing to highlight here is the norm group average, which is the average score observed for students in the most recent study. So basically all the students who were taking this test in the fall who were third graders, their average score was a 192. That's what this is saying for third graders. Then sliding over a little bit further, what you'll have there is the student percentile range. So in any of the four areas, this particular student scored from the 76 to the 90th percentile. And that's nationally amongst all third graders who took this particular test. Of course, the mid-range highlighted there is 84%. And then if you look to the right, then you have reading as well, and it's the same type of breakdown in terms of the year, the score range, the average, etc., etc. Now we're going to move down to the middle of the page, and you'll see that it has mathematics goals performances on the left and reading goals performance on the right. What that means is that their goal performances as a third grader, what were they expected to do, and how did they compare to that? So, for example, with number sense with this particular student, they were higher than what was expected. They scored highly. Second is high average, so they were a little bit above what would be the goal. And then you see they have high, high, and high average. So this student that the sample was taken here, it did fairly well with all of this. And same thing with the reading scores. You look at word analysis and vocabulary on the right. Again, high reading strategies and comprehension, high average. So that tells you how they did in relation to the goal. Next up, highlighted in the box there, is the Lexile range score. This also might be read to some of you as a, well, it should just be a Lexile score. It might say writ to reading range, something like that, depending on what your report looks like. And what that is that number can be used to find appropriate literature for your son or daughter to read. That's why it's on the right side here with the reading. If they were to go to, say, the public library with this score, they could say, I'm looking for books in this range, and the librarian there should be able to direct them to books in that range, which again will be challenging them at the appropriate level to further develop their reading and comprehension skills. Other important information you may need to know: MAP testing will be done again in April. Look for the info on specific dates as we get closer to that time, and then again next year in the fall and of course the spring. With each test, more information will be available to you and us about your child's growth. And as I mentioned, the report that we just looked at, for example, will have quite a bit more information for us to look at, and we can start then charting growth and looking at those things and giving our teachers even more feedback and tools to work with to further enrich the education that they have here at Union Ridge. Thank you very much. Have a